in Florida, there's a senior living community that they start to create avatars in the image of families and friends for helping Alzheimer patients to retain their memory. So now you see that generative AI actually creates a new business that hasn't been offered before.
Hi, I'm Eric Johnson, the Bruce Henderson Professor of Strategy at Vanderbilt University, and I'm really excited today to be here with Professor Kejia. We're going to be talking about AI today, and AI is something that is just driving all of our imagination and creativity. We're thinking a lot about AI and its impact on business, and Kejia has been in the middle of all of that, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Kejia.
Thank you, Eric, for being here with me. So my name is Kejia. I joined Oxford Saïd Business School about 2 years ago, and now I'm basically driving two major initiatives at Oxford. One is with the Diploma AI program, which is an executive education program, and I serve program co-director. And the other one is the Human Algorithm Interaction Lab, which we are about to run some of interesting workshops that gather both practitioners and academic scholars together to talk about how we can shape the future of AI.
Kejia, what got you interested in AI and business?
Yeah, it's a long journey. Actually, about 15 years ago, I'm still a statistician student. And then over there, we start to leaning into the whole big data wave, which the Silicon Valley start to talk about how you can use data to make better decisions. And then when I start my PhD at Kellogg, we really dive into a lot of practices that we directly work with firms, such as Dell on their supply chain projects, and later with Nissan on their auto loan projects. And then from all these projects, I actually realized, of course, algorithms can be designed to surpass accuracy in terms of prediction for human, can help us to make a lot of good decisions. But also when you really implement in organizations, you also need to think a lot of people-related issues. How do you incentivize your employees for using AI? How do you make sure that you have the right process so that you can really leverage the advantage of human and also the advantage of AI together? So for that, it actually relates to a lot of new study points, such as operational level of innovation and even business level of information that we need to think about how AI can really transform our business into a totally different look for tomorrow.
So I know you've been thinking a lot about this, and we've had conversations. You've put together in your mind this 4 levels of transformation.
Yes.
Help us understand, what are you thinking about there?
Certainly. So I think we actually see a lot of conversation about how AI can surpass human on a lot of tasks. And then this leads to the first level, which is automation. So basically, you are doing the same task, but now you basically swamping AI in and take the human out. However, this is not the best opportunity for embracing AI. Sometimes I say, if you really look at what is the benefits you're going to yield long term, well, first you're going to save your labor cost, and maybe you gain some efficiency gain. But if the market is not growing, then we see that the value you can have is kind of capped with a limit. Yeah. But there are another 3 levels which I actually encourage my students to try, which go into bringing additional values for transform your business with AI. So the second level will be personalization. And we actually see lots of great companies simply just using personalization of their algorithms. They become great companies in their history. So for example, Netflix. And then we have TikTok for these kind of social media streaming. And then you also have ByteDance, who was doing a lot of news feeding using customized content. But this is the second level. It's still the same task. Can we be a little bit more innovative? And that leads to the third and fourth level, which I call operational level innovation and business level innovation. So what do I mean by operational level innovations? I give you one quick example. So thinking about your typical clinical visit. We walk in, and the nurse and doctor, they will collect the basic information from us. Now think it's not the nurse or doctor collect all this information. Instead, it will be a large language model-based agent to collect all the information, and they consolidate this information in such a nicely documented, structured format that when your doctor welcome you into the clinic, they already know how long you have the headache, whether you have all this chronic disease, what are the problems that bothers you, do you have any allergy for your medications? And then without asking those questions again, they immediately get into the conversation for how they can better treat you with more personalized treatment by working through the concerns you have. So in that way, you can say that we use LLM to actually take care of part of the operational. And then we leave the doctor for the co-business for directly intercare with the patient. But beyond that, these days, there's also one company I saw, they're using LLM to do quality inspections for this kind of clinic visit. They will actually suggest the doctor saying that you probably want to do these 3 more checks or questions to ensure there will not be any follow-up medical related accidents because you didn't collect those information before. And then also the system will also connect with database such as the inventory in the pharmacy. And then they will be able to also tell the doctor what will be the best medicine to prescribe to the patient based on the whole management of the hospitals. So that's what I'm talking about, operational innovation. And we see that happening in finance, supply chain, accounting, all different types of industry, not just healthcare. So I'm happy to expand that with my students in class or for audience who are interested to hear me continue to talk about. But the list can go on for a long time. But the last one that is really got me exciting is the business innovation. So basically, you see a lot of people were talking about, AI will not reduce the job. It will create new jobs. So where are those new jobs? And that leads to the business innovation. So one exciting things I have seen with senior care is in Florida. There's a senior living community that they start to create avatars in the image of families and friends for helping Alzheimer patients to retain their memory. And this is not something that it can be done without generative AI, right? So now you see that generative AI actually create new business, new services that hasn't been offered before. And there's also another exciting initiative I heard from insurance company that they be basically talking about, okay, if an autonomous vehicle having accident, should it be the automakers or should it be the driver to take the responsibility of the accident? And I believe you have seen on newspapers a lot of debates around that topic. But now insurance company was saying that maybe it should be us to ensuring the algorithms and using what we have known from simulation, the likelihood for the algorithms to make errors in both ways, judging the truth into the false, or maybe the other way around. They can using the same calculation they have done for measuring the value of a healthcare insurance now to back up an algorithm insurance. Now, if you imagine there will be so many algorithms being created, this is definitely going to be a growing business, right? So that's what I'm talking about, the 4 level of innovation. And you apparently see the later 2 stage is going to lead to more imagination and, of course, more jobs and more value will be created. Of course, not let people simply being laid off.
Yeah, yeah. So, you're talking about this personalization, and I think many people have begun to experience that. You mentioned Netflix, for example, knowing exactly what I like to watch and so forth.
Yes.
Are there places that you've seen personalization that excite you or you think are really effective?
Oh, yes, totally. One thing that I find that sometimes even strikes me a bit is my social media feed. So sometimes I carry my phone with me. And then after I feel I have a nice conversation with my friends over dinner about AI, suddenly some of the social media start to feed in the latest news about AI the latest startups about AI. So they knows, they also hears about our conversations. And I think this is something that make information acquisition also a little bit different, right? Now you start to deliberately receive these kind of passive information feed from the social media. Actually, I have a interesting joke I heard from my friends. He was saying that his wife actually deliberately searched some luxury brands before the Valentine's Day, so that he going to see some advertisements jumping to him about these particular gifts his wife want for those Valentine's celebration.
Yeah?
Exactly. This is the personalization has go. But beyond that, we also see personalized in education happens quite a lot. So now you see that you don't necessarily need to talk with a real human to train your language skills. You can actually train with the AI who knows your skill the best, and they will be able to converse with you. Another interesting I found is that these days I travel with my daughter Sarah, and sometimes we go to a new place. I ask my AI assistant to generate a travel plan. After that, Sarah sometimes going to ask, oh, why this place is special? And then, of course, the generic version will be to an adult. So Sarah will say, please explain to me in a way that a 7-year-old will be able to understand. So my Sarah is actually instructed AI to speak in a way he will be able to digest the information. Isn't that cool? I mean, regardless how the original information is written, but now based on their understanding level, everybody actually has some liberty in acquiring those information.
Yeah. So that all sounds really exciting, but of course, many people are concerned about their jobs and whether they'll keep their job or whether AI will take their job. What do you say to them?
Certainly, I think there's no doubt some job will be completely gone because AI. I would love to share with you some data we actually learned from history. So if you look back 150 years in history, we found that some industry actually lost quite large share of their employment. Agriculture lose about 55%. And same for construction, mining, they lose quite a lot of jobs. And now if you imagine what contribute to that reduction in the employment, it's actually all technology, right? It can be the biomedical engineering so that we have more helpful fertilizers, pesticide, and also it could be the mechanical engineering. So now we have all the machines that can help farmers to be more effectively and efficiently taking care of their plants. But then on the other side, what are the industry actually gain lots of additional employment? It's actually education, healthcare, professional services such as accounting, consulting, and legal services. Beyond that is the trade that actually also gain quite a lot of jobs. Now, if I ask you to think a little bit between these two types of industry, you immediately find they actually ask quite different skills from people. The agricultural construction primarily rely on your strong body, right? But then the other side, the education, healthcare, it requires you mindfulness. It also requires you to really leverage your thinking capability. And similarly for professional services, we really need to cultivate that expertise over long term. So what I project is that AI not necessarily going to take away the unique thinking capability, the unique empathy capability, the unique interpersonal capability we're going to build with human. Now, the real solution is actually goes back to the 4-level transformation I just mentioned. If we continue with automation, of course, you're going to see great reduction of jobs. But now if we can create new jobs while business innovation, or if we can create new roles for leveraging humans' unique capability with operational innovation, then I think we're basically going to see much exciting job for people to engage with. The one that utilize your thinking capability, your interpersonal skills, and also if you really think about the two types of industry in comparison, is the one that with a unit of effort, you can generate more value to society. So I actually feel very hopeful for the future. We're going to do more meaningful jobs that generate bigger value.
Okay. So tell us one application that you find particularly exciting.
Yeah, so I would say that recently I'm really fascinated about this partnership with an AI education company. And we know that in China, the parents are particularly serious about the kids' education. You need to go to the best schools. You really need to go get all straight A's on your transcripts, right? So there's a lot of pressures. But we know that nobody can be all number one in their classroom. So this is the education company. We actually share the same philosophy in terms of how education should be. The whole theme is that we would like to let the students study more efficiently, use less time, but then achieve the score or the grades they would like. And also at the same time, let the teacher teach more effectively so that we don't need to go into those extra hours of tutorial sessions. So how does the company doing that? This is actually related with operational innovation. So you know that usually the class in a high school is structured with about 45 minutes. So in this company, they have 3 schools that they also cover the K to 12 educations. So in the AI-empowered classroom, so what the teacher does is that the first 20 minutes, he'll going to go through some of the concepts related with today's subjects. And then we have about 10 minutes exercise that all the students going to fill quizzes on their iPad. And then immediately the AI grade those quizzes in no time. But then they summarize, they actually form a knowledge tree, and the tree will lit up in different degree of color. So the teacher, with that simple visualization, suddenly know with his 20 minutes of teaching, how exactly students learn today. Oh, this concept is so weak, only about 20% of the students know. That one is pretty good, already 80-90% of students grasp the concept. So in the remaining time, about 15 to 20 minutes, the AI will actually recommend exercise problems for the teacher to go through so that she knows exactly how to strengthen the weak concepts AI just collected the information from. So you see that this is totally from the traditional feedback loop in the classroom, right?
Very dynamic.
Yes, very dynamic. And also the teacher does not need to rely on 20 years of experience, but simply just by assistance of the AI, she or he immediately know what should be the right exercise problems or concepts to cover to strengthen. But the best part is with the homework. Students doesn't need to do the same homework anymore. Based on their answers in the classroom, every day when they go back, their iPad is going to give a customized, personalized assignment plan.
Based on their weakness?
Based on their weakness. And the best part is that it's also not fixed. If actually the AI finds you are grasping the idea quickly with 2 to 3 initial exercises, they will also change the later questions you're about to answer. So I think this is totally changing how education is delivered. And one thing that we actually found from some of the data analysis we do is that we found this one little thing, maybe we can also share with audience who watched the episode. So they basically find once you reach 95 accuracy of a subject, you shouldn't actually work on it more. But usually a student, when they find a subject they are very good at, they actually have the enthusiasms to continue working on that subject, right? So what AI does is that when they reach out, the students is reach a good enough level of study, they will actually change into a subject. But this subject is also not randomly chosen. It's based on the concept they just learned, and they find what is the most adjacent concept that will easily for the student to transform their previous knowledge into the newly studied ones. So I think this is going to be the future of education. more efficient, more effective, students learn quicker, and they got all the extra time to also cultivate the unique skills, as I mentioned, for tomorrow's business, like your interpersonal skills.
And some time to explore other interests and ideas.
sports, yes, all the fun stuff, yes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we have some T-Talks audience questions to dig into. So why don't I look at the first one here, and it's, how can AI transform education by adopting learning experiences to individual needs? Ooh, this sounds very close to what you were just talking about, learning styles and abilities, particularly like neurodivergent kind of folks.
Yes, totally. So I already mentioned one application as we just talked about how students can actually adapt their learning pathway with AI, or teacher can also adapt. But there's also some other things we find that we are exploring in education at Saïd Business School. And particularly this is with our diploma AI programs. Over there, we find that students need to have the following 4 pillars that are important for them to embrace AI for tomorrow's. The first one, of course, is to understand how exactly the technology works. So I basically saying this is how you know about the mechanics, okay, of these AI bugs. But the second one is what I mentioned about how do you use it. And this is something I think is super important for today's education. It's about the applicability, because acquiring knowledge is so easy with the AI's facilitations. So application is actually the part you think it's not that easy. AI cannot necessarily tell you that. And sometimes you really need to use your creative thinking to say, oh, I think these two plus that tools will be actually combined together for serving these purposes. Actually, one thing that I learned from our student at Diploma AI is that he actually transformed our reading into a podcast. And then he listened to the podcast while he jogging. So that you see that even the traditional way of education, the students also invented their own ways of how to put technology into use. And this is something that I think not only for your own personal study purpose, for business, that's exactly what's the most important thing these days. I believe 2 years ago, I still have a lot of questions coming to me saying that, oh, LM is great, but what is the use case? Now suddenly you see that, oh, there are all kinds of these use cases with SAP, they have their Einstein AI, Salesforce with the Einstein AI, and then also you see that Google now start to have this ecosystem that you can leverage all the calendars, Gmails, workspace together, and then Google employees actually demonstrate just by checking into their Gemini in the beginning of the day, it actually populates a personal assistant's schedule of what they should prioritize for arranging their time of the day. So this is the second part, application. I think it's super important, but it requires you understand the technology, which is the first part. You have your literacy. But then the second part is really about how you can embrace AI in your own creative way. And I believe not everybody going to use the two the same way, even though there are some good common practice, but I think it will be actually also a personalized choices everybody need to think about. And the third one, I believe, is also important for our students to have some of understanding regarding the ecosystem. And the ecosystem, I mean, legal compliance issues, ethical considerations, and also, of course, inequality that may be triggered by AI's usage. And this one, I suggest social science topics, philosophy, and also even bigger, broader, like divinity topics will actually be very important for the students to carry so that they will be able to know how we can create an ecosystem that is good enough, not just for one company or one person, but really for our whole society and whole human being. Lastly, I think it's also very important for the students to understand what is most important is still actually the personal touch. So I believe the leadership, the interpersonal skill, your empathy still holds the most important. So now if you ask me about education, I think we're going to greatly change the way how students acquire information, acquire knowledge. We will emphasize quite a lot about application and use case. But then beyond that, I think the social science consideration and even deeper philosophy consideration is important. And lastly, human-to-human contact is always be there for education.
That's great. That's great.
Awesome. So I think now it's my turn. Maybe Erica, I'll ask you the next questions. Okay, here it goes. What are the top 3 most crucial roles that someone can take up, particularly someone who decides to transition from her current career role? So that's very practical career advice.
Very practical.
Yes.
Well, I think I talk to students and to people working all the time about this subject. It's a time of, in many ways, of great excitement, but fear. What does the future bring? And what I tell them all the time is that it's a time to be curious. There's a kind of a famous strategy tool, we call it the 3-box tool, that companies use, but people can also use. And the 3 boxes work like this. There's box number 1 is manage the present. That is, you're constantly doing your work right now. That's where we spend most of our time, thinking about that present. But here's the kicker. You need to spend a lot of time right now in selectively forgetting things, forgetting the way you used to do things, and stepping into what we call box 3, which is managing the future. And managing the future sounds like something you're doing tomorrow, but no, it's something you need to be doing right now to get ready. And curiosity is such a big part of that. It's very hard to say, oh, this is the role that you're going to go do tomorrow. But it's easy to say, here's the way to get ready for that. And simple things, all those neat tools that you're talking about, those AI tools that are popping up everywhere. Everyone needs to be experimenting with those, trying them, using them, getting ready. That is what you're doing when you're managing the future. You're planning your future just by doing that. And that's what I really encourage people to think about.
I love that. I think managing the future is so important, in particular as the technology is moving so fast. I feel like some things that I used to be good at now is totally revamped with something different. And then I think also with all this uncertainty around us, so managing future is such an important thing.
Yeah. Well, I think we got one more. Let's see what we got here. Oh, this is a big one. What can government policies, how can they be designed to keep humans at work while using AI as a partner rather than having AI just take over completely?
I like it. I like it. I think it's also so connected with the previous things we've been talking about. We've been talking about from the business side of solution, which is I encouraging my students, primarily they are coming from the business sectors, to create new business sectors that let people enjoy meaningful and exciting jobs. But also about 20% of our diploma AI students, they happen to also be government officers. And then for those people, I think when we have the conversation, they're also very inspired by the comment saying that we need to create new business sectors. We should not just think about efficiency boost in the traditional sectors, because they also see it's going to lead to unemployment rate, and down the path, potentially it leads to some economy downturns. So when we talk about where do you encourage new business to grow, that's exactly, I think, a lot of innovation projects has been supported by the government or has been encouraged by the governments through a lot of seed funding or grant or funding availability in the UK, and also I also see it happening in the US with the Small Business Fund, and also I believe in some of the university there are also innovation park where they kind of thinking very hard how to transform the latest research findings into something that are ready for market usage. So definitely, I think this kind of encouraging environment and the related policy is needed. And these days, while I moved just from US to UK, I do see that UK is actually quite dedicated in investing new AI-related initiatives and projects. and potentially also raising them into startups. So that's definitely important. But also, I would say that on the other side, there are some traditional policy that we can leverage. For example, we know that governments sometimes give some tax cut because you are hiring people with disability or people with special needs. And I believe this could also be some kind of encouragement for government to incentivize companies saying that, okay, don't just lay off your people if you see there is a cost reduction benefits, but really we give you some tax breaks to encourage you to think about operational level of innovation where you can still engage your current employees, but maybe transfer their skills, uplift their capability so that they can actually co-work with AI in the tomorrow's operational process. I think that's some of the encouragement tools I would suggest the government policy to roll out. But also on the other side, I think it's become more and more important for government to also realize data-related issues, as a lot of the data people engage with AI actually goes back to the tech company. But then the people who use the AI is not necessarily the general populations, right? So they will always have some kind of, I would say, inequality consideration. The government really need to think about how they can better leverage the technology instead of it creating a new divide. Previously, we have the digital divide, and nowadays maybe we will have AI divide. And there are other some safety consideration I think government need to take care of. Is also cybersecurity related issues. So nowadays you see that we actually found that there are several cases where company secrets got leaked out because employment is using some of the AI. And this, I believe, hasn't been really leads to any related legislation yet regarding how this kind of information should be regulated or penalized. Beyond that, there are also new fraud that's leveraging generative AI, that people are in the image of the CEO and the CFO and then conducting about 20 million frauds to take away the company's asset. So previously we got protection from the phishing emails, but now it may be something else. The government need to set up the new policing systems. Of course, the last consideration we are also suggesting the government to think about is related with copyrights. As now generative AI is so capable in creating new things simply by using prompt. To what extent the copyright is owned by people who contribute to the database, and to what extent it goes to the people who write the prompt or tune the AI program. I think there's a lot of new space for government to discover, to set up the proper fence for AI to boom, but also not to completely let it go out of control. So government, they have a lot of job to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Kejia. And thank you for joining Oxford Tea Talks. And we'll be back with many more exciting topics. So stay tuned for new topics and ideas.